My name is Michael Greer. I'm 32 years old, and last night, my parents seated me in the garage at their anniversary party. They didn't forget. It wasn't an accident. My mother looked me right in the eye and said, "It's just for extended family," then turned and walked away. It took that exact moment, me standing by a lawnmower, staring at a folding chair next to an old box fan, to realize that everything I'd done for them, every sacrifice, every second of being the easy son, the reliable one, meant absolutely nothing. Let me back up. My sister Emma has always been the star of the family. She's 4 years younger, blonde, loud, full of charisma. Everything she touches becomes a show. And my parents, they ate it up. Her high school talent show got more attention than my college graduation. She could burn dinner and they'd say the oven was to blame. I once fixed their plumbing by myself during a flood, and my mom told me I should have called a professional so it would be done right. But I kept showing up. When my dad lost his job, I helped with the mortgage months of it while eating instant noodles and skipping dentist appointments. When my mom had back surgery, I used my vacation days to care for her. When Emma needed help starting her photography business, guess who co-signed the loan? Me, always me. Last year, I gave them $15,000 to fix a roof leak they swore was threatening the house's structure. That was my condo down payment fund, the house I'd been dreaming of. I watched that dream evaporate with a tight smile and a transfer confirmation. My mother had said, "You're a good son, Michael," then moved on like she'd thanked me for taking out the trash. I didn't expect parades, but I thought something, maybe a nod, maybe a thank you that felt real. So when their 35th wedding anniversary came up, a full catered affair, string lights, valet parking, I thought maybe this would be different. Maybe this time, I'd be included, really included, like someone who mattered. I helped find the caterer, got them a discount through a contact, I RSVP'd, bought them a custom-framed map of their hometown sentimental stuff. They used to talk about retiring there. I even dressed up a navy blazer, pressed slacks. I don't usually bother, but I wanted to look presentable. Inside, the house glowed like something out of a Southern Living magazine. Music, smells of rosemary chicken and truffle mac, people everywhere, family, old friends, co-workers. Emma was holding court by the wine table, camera around her neck, dazzling as usual. I found my parents, handed over the framed map. "Oh," my mother said, turning it briefly in her hands. "This is nice, Michael." Then she handed it off to someone without another glance. My dad gave me the classic shoulder pat, his version of affection, a wordless, "Thanks, now move along." I took a breath. Where am I sitting? My mom blinked. "Oh, you're out there. Garage." I frowned. "The garage?" She sighed. That same sigh she's used my whole life when she was annoyed I even had a question. "It's for extended family. You understand?" I didn't. I turned slowly toward the side door and stepped out into the heat and oil stink. There it was, one long plastic table, folding chairs, a box fan turning lazily in the corner, my name scrawled on a paper place card. Inside, people I barely knew, cousins, neighbors, even a guy my dad once sued over a fence dispute had linen napkins and real glassware. I was in the tool shed, metaphorically and literally. And that's when something in me broke. It wasn't rage, it wasn't even sadness. It was this bone-deep clarity, a stillness that whispered, "They don't see you, they never have." I walked back into the main room. The party quieted. My father looked up from his drink. "Michael, where are you?" I held up the gift I'd brought. "You seated me in the garage," I said it was for extended family. Silence. "I paid for your roof, I helped you stay in this house, and you stuck me next to the water heater." Eyes darted. Emma stopped laughing. "Extend this," I said, placing the framed map down on a random table. And I walked out. That's when I heard my dad's voice behind me. Michael, get back here." But I didn't. I drove home in silence, not even the radio. My hands gripped the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me upright. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just existed. My phone buzzed all night. Missed calls. Angry texts. You embarrassed us. That was uncalled for. How dare you hurt your mother? Emma even chimed in, "Grow up, Michael. You made everything about you." And I stared at the messages and thought, maybe I should have done this 10 years ago. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their approval. I was walking away from it. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was a living thing, buzzing, threatening, panicked. I stared at the screen and didn't know which message to press delete on first, my mom's name looming. The group chat thread with Emma and half the extended family, their voices crashing through pixels. "You humiliated us. You owe an apology. You're not the victim you think." But I didn't reply. Even now, typing back felt like stepping back into their trap, so I let it ring. I spent the rest of the day in silence, something I'd never allowed myself. No distractions, no social scrolling, no music, just quiet. For once, I gave myself room to feel. The guilt, yeah, it was there, curling in my gut like a living thing, but so was relief. After years of performing gratitude, of giving until my savings were dry, the only feeling I had this morning was lightness. That afternoon, I got a voicemail from Emma. "Mike, please, I know you feel hurt, but your dad's 60 next month, and please, just let's fix this." I listened and realized I barely recognized the voice. It sounded practiced, rehearsed, the voice of someone who expects her words to paper over a lifetime of neglect. I deleted the voicemail. It was just one symptom of a bigger sickness, my no contact. I decided I needed boundaries, not apologies. I took my phone off the kitchen counter and reset it so only close friends could call. The backlash spread. By day 3, the family group chat exploded with their version of the narrative. I'd gone off the rails. I'd cost them face. I'd made a huge scene at a meaningful celebration. They posted pictures from inside Emma beaming, parents radiant around the same time I'd gone rouge. The message was clear. Look at this beautiful party everyone else got to enjoy. If you weren't happy, it's your fault, not ours. It felt raw, like they were weaponizing my own memories against me. But I had a friend, Sarah, who listened when I told her. She didn't gasp or cajole me to patch things up. She sat there and said, "You weren't doing this for attention. You were doing it because you deserved respect." Those words felt like a statement I'd forgotten even mattered. So during the next few days, I started dissecting everything. Canceling the tutoring account I paid for Emma's kids. Withdrawing my volunteer commitment for their anniversary cleanup fundraiser. Unfollowing their social media feeds for clarity, not spite. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't about punishment. It was about reclaiming my time, my resources, my life. Still, they didn't let it go. My mother sent a heartfelt email that felt manipulative. "We just want things to go back to normal. You're hurting us and you're hurting yourself." Emma posted a throwback photo of us as kids, captioned, "It's painful when a loved one pushes you away." She tagged me, but I didn't comment. The post stayed up long after I quietly stepped away from their digital world. Then something weird happened. The tone changed. Instead of guilt tactics, I started getting concerned inquiries. A cousin texting, "Hey man, heard about the party. Just checking on you." An old professor emailing Michael, "Your sister mentioned there was a bit of chaos. If you want to talk, I'm here." Even my neighbor dropped off some homemade banana bread with a note, "Saw your car leaves at the party. Hope you're well." They didn't know I hadn't slept in 2 nights, and I still couldn't tell if it was pity or genuine. By the end of the week, I realized this people outside the bubble saw what I couldn't see anymore, the imbalance, the gaslighting, the subtle hierarchy I'd lived in. Still, the family continued. My dad started calling again, not just to apologize for the anniversary, but to hint at my withholding contact affecting upcoming milestones, Mom's birthday, Mother's Day brunch. Emma texted to wish me well on a birthday I'd already forgotten. I didn't respond. I texted Sarah and she listened again, told me they'd violated boundaries, and that didn't make me a villain, it made me someone who valued respect. So 2 weeks after the anniversary, I made a choice. I drafted a letter, not an email, a physical letter, and posted it that day to my mother, father, and sister. I walked out last month because I couldn't stay in a place that said I didn't matter. I gave until I had nothing left, and they treated me like no one. I can't go back, but I can't forget how I got here. I love you, but I won't sacrifice myself again. This letter isn't an apology, it's a boundary. And then I sealed it and sent it. It wasn't dramatic, no grand performance, no tearful phone call, just final. And that's what felt like the first real act of self-care I'd done in decades. Before that, I was the guy who did everything for earned approval. Now, I was giving my time, my money, my energy to people who actually needed or respected it. By the end of part 2, here's where I stood. I'd said no to being their scapegoat and financial cushion. I'd repurposed that energy into my own lifetime, hobbies, peace. I'd started therapy. My first session is next week. I had a boundary with them, no calls, no requests, no guilt. And I had a plan, finish gathering every bit of evidence of my financial contributions, save every receipt, bank transfer, text, email. Because letting go wasn't enough, I needed to protect myself from ever being manipulated again. That's where I am now. Quiet. Firm. Building. And not looking back, a few weeks after I sent the letter, I thought the silence meant it worked. That maybe, just maybe, they finally heard me. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that people who thrive on control don't give it up quietly. It started with the family accountant, of all people. I got a call from Linda. She's been doing their taxes for over a decade. We'd crossed paths occasionally, mostly when I helped Mom gather documents during their rougher years. "Michael, I hope this isn't intrusive," she said hesitantly, but something odd came up in their files. I wasn't sure if I should call, but something told me you should know. My stomach dropped. What kind of odd? Your name came up on a few large deposits they claimed as gifts from a relative, but the dates match your transfers from 2019 and 22. The house repairs, remember? I did remember, painfully. She continued, they claimed the money was theirs, tax-free gifts, not loans. But Michael, the amounts you sent, you could have bought a small house. I didn't gift that money, I said flatly. I postponed my life, my condo, my security. That's what I thought. I felt like I needed to tell you. I hung up with a mix of dread and clarity. Something that had been gnawing at me now screamed they'd been rewriting the story on paper. 2. It wasn't just emotional manipulation, it was financial distortion. I opened my email and began pulling everything: screenshots of texts, emails, transaction records, even old voicemails. I created folders labeled by year. I hadn't realized how much I'd been gaslit until I saw it all in black and white. In 2020, after sending $12,000 for emergency plumbing, my mom replied, "Thank you. You're always so generous." No mention of payback. No record of what happened next. I never even saw the repairs. But the worst came when I found an email from Emma. It was forwarded by accident years ago. I remember now I'd asked her to email me Mom's insurance information, and she must have clicked forward all. Buried in the thread was a line she sent to my parents, just weeks after I helped them with the roof. "Michael will do it. He always does. Just make it sound urgent and he'll bend. He's been trained for it." My breath caught in my throat. Trained, not loved, not appreciated, trained. Like a dog. I wanted to throw my laptop through the window, but I didn't. Instead, I called Sarah. She came over that night, and I read her everything line by line, year by year. She didn't flinch. She didn't say, "Are you sure that's what it means?" She said, "No, this isn't just guilt. This is grooming and exploitation." We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she said, "Michael, you need legal protection. Even if you're not suing them, they can't keep distorting reality. You need someone to back you up." That's how I met Jeff. Jeff was a lawyer Sarah worked with through a housing nonprofit. I brought him a flash drive, a stack of printed bank statements, and a notebook filled with dates, emotional patterns, even passive-aggressive quotes from family emails. He went through it all, quietly, methodically. Then he looked up and said, "I can't promise a financial recovery, but I can promise your history will be documented, officially. If they ever try to frame this as ungrateful child behavior again, they'll have to do it with sworn statements in the face of a very different narrative." That alone was worth it. He drafted a formal letter, a legal notification documenting the total financial contributions I'd made over the years itemized. It included receipts, estimated interest, and a declaration that no funds were ever intended as gifts. He didn't send it yet, just said, "Sit with this. When you're ready, we can send it as a protective measure." I sat with it. And while I did, the next surprise came from the person I least expected, my Aunt Diane. She showed up at my apartment one Saturday morning with a manila envelope and a look on her face like someone who'd swallowed a secret for too long. "I know I should have come sooner," she said, "but I didn't know how bad it was." Inside the envelope were old handwritten notes, some from my grandma, who passed away years ago, notes about the house, the inheritance plan, and most importantly, about the savings account my parents were supposed to keep in trust for me. Not Emma, me. It had been opened when I was 10. My grandma put away small amounts every year: birthday money, bonds, checks intended for my future home. The account was drained in 2015. I stared at the page. Where did the money go? Aunt Diane bit her lip. "They used it to cover Emma's student loans. They told your grandma you agreed." I laughed, a dry, hollow sound. I never even knew it existed. "I believe you," she said. That night, Jeff confirmed the account had been legally in my name until my 18th birthday. After that, my parents had control for Michael's future needs, as stated in a memo. It was theft. Soft, quiet, a familial theft. Oh, that was my breaking point. I told Jeff to send the letter. And I started planning something else, not out of rage, but out of necessity. Because if they wanted to rewrite history, I was going to publish the truth. Not in court, not through lawyers, but in my own words, my own timeline, my own voice. And I wasn't going to hold back. I didn't plan to go public at first. But when you spend your life being rewritten by others, flattened into the convenient version of yourself they can exploit without guilt, something inside you starts to rot, and the only way to purge that rot is sunlight. I started writing the post like I was writing a eulogy, not for a person, but for an illusion. I laid it all out: the garage seating at the anniversary party, the decades of emotional sidelining, the thousands sent for a roof that was never repaired, the account my grandmother opened for me that mysteriously disappeared, the email from Emma, the one where she called me trained. I attached photos, redacted but clear enough, bank records, email excerpts, text threads, not to shame them, not out of vengeance. To survive. Sarah helped me refine the language. Jeff read it twice to confirm it wouldn't invite legal retaliation. I clicked post at 8:32 p.m. on a Tuesday. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, it had over 9,000 upvotes, hundreds of comments, people who'd been through the same, people who said, "I was the family ATM too," people who cried reading it. Then came the messages, from old friends, former coworkers, even distant cousins, all saying the same thing: "We saw how they treated you. We just didn't know how bad it was." My parents saw it by noon. I got a call from my father. I didn't answer. Then came the texts, angry, desperate, alternating between threats and guilt. Mom, how could you air this dirty laundry? What's wrong with you? Dad, you've betrayed your family. You're not welcome here. Emma, you're mentally unstable. Get help! That one stung less than I expected. I'd seen the mask drop long ago. By Friday, the fallout had gone nuclear. Emma lost a small brand sponsorship, one she bragged about for months after someone connected her name to the now viral story. My parents' circle of friends began to shrink. People were pulling away, unsure what to believe. I wasn't celebrating, but I wasn't sorry either. The breaking point came when I got a letter, a real one mailed, handwritten. From Kelly. Kelly is Emma's old college roommate. They hadn't spoken in years, but Kelly remembered the way Emma talked about me back then, like I was a tool, a failsafe, a non-person who just did what he was told. She didn't respect you. The letter said, she treated you like a backup generator for her life. I saw it. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. That sealed it. The story was out there. I had the truth, but I wasn't finished. I scheduled a meeting with Jeff. I want to file the paperwork. I said. He nodded. You sure? Yeah, I want it official. I want my contributions formally acknowledged. I want protections in place so they can never do this to me again. We drafted a retroactive family loan agreement documenting the $60,000 plus I'd given over the years. With the evidence I had, it was enforceable. Maybe I'd never get the money back, but legally, they couldn't frame it as gifts again. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about self-respect. I also added one final clause: they were to cease all contact unless initiated by me, in writing. I mailed it, certified, return receipt requested. 2 weeks later, I got a letter back. Not from my parents, from their lawyer. They wouldn't contest it. I stared at the paper. It felt like the final thread had snapped. And with it, the last ounce of guilt I'd been carrying since I was old enough to say yes when I meant no. After that, things moved fast. The story kept circulating, reshared, reshaped, echoed in online communities. Some local journalist even reached out asking to write a piece about quiet family estrangement. I declined. I didn't need a spotlight, just my own piece. But I did start therapy. I found a trauma-informed specialist, someone who understood familial gaslighting. She didn't flinch when I told her about the garage, the emails, the cold silences dressed as concern. She said something in our second session that broke me open. Michael, love without respect is control. That was it. I started seeing things clearly after that. Every text I didn't answer, every call I let go to voicemail, every invitation to just talk, I deleted without a second glance. They weren't bridges burning. They were doors closing on rooms I never needed to re-enter. I began writing again, not just for Reddit, for me. I wrote about recovery, about boundaries, about how freedom sometimes feels like loneliness at first because you're not used to your own voice echoing back without someone else's judgment attached. And then one afternoon, Mark called. Yes, that Mark, the cousin who ended up in the garage with me. Hey, he said, voice unsure. I read your story. I didn't know it was like that. I didn't say anything. I'm sorry, he continued. For how I acted, I was a mess. I see it now. I exhaled. Maybe healing didn't come from the people you expected. Maybe it came from the ones who'd once been lost but found their way to honesty. We talked for a long time. I don't know what's next for my family. Maybe they'll rebuild their image. Maybe they'll find someone else to cast in the role of scapegoat. Maybe Emma will spin her own version of events until she believes it. But I won't be part of that show. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not auditioning for their love anymore. And the silence that follows. It's not exile. It's freedom. 6 months passed. That's the thing no one tells you when you cut off a toxic family. The world doesn't go quiet. It just gets quieter in the right ways. The static of guilt fades. The constant pull to prove yourself weakens. What's left is unfamiliar, even unsettling, but it's yours. The anniversary party had become a point of reference. Before the garage and after the garage. That folding chair was the last time I let them reduce me. After that, my life slowly became mine again. I moved. Not far, but far enough that I didn't have to risk seeing them at the grocery store or the coffee shop. I sold off half the furniture, donated the rest, and packed what mattered. The framed map I once gave them, I kept it. Not because I missed them, but because I wanted to reclaim the narrative. That map was mine now, my reminder that history doesn't define you unless you let it. I started freelance consulting. Turns out, years of being the family problem solver translated well into helping companies navigate messy internal politics. I set my own hours, built my own clients. For the first time, I wasn't working under someone else's thumb or for someone else's survival. And then there was Jamie. We met through Sarah. I wasn't looking. Honestly, I'd built so many walls I didn't think anyone could see me clearly again. But Jamie wasn't intimidated by the silence I carried. They didn't flinch at the mess. They just sat with me in it, and in their presence. I didn't feel like a burden. I felt seen. One night after dinner, they asked the question no one else had. Who do you want to be without them? I didn't have an answer. Not then, but I thought about it every day after. I wanted to be kind without being taken advantage of. I wanted to be strong without turning cold. I wanted to be generous without bleeding out. I wanted to live from choice, not obligation. A few weeks later, Jamie and I took a weekend trip. No agenda, just mountains, crisp air, and long drives with the windows down. We didn't talk about the past much. We talked about plans, small ones, like planting a lemon tree, and big ones, like what kind of life we wanted to build. It was during that trip that something shifted again. We passed an old roadside diner abandoned, with a for sale sign leaning sideways in the window. Most people would have kept driving, but Jamie slowed down, looked at me. You've always talked about wanting to open your own place. A real community spot, coffee, books, maybe live music. I laughed, caught off guard. That was just a dream. So they asked, dreams are just plans waiting for bravery. I didn't buy the diner, not yet, but I called the number on the sign. I asked questions. For the first time, I let myself consider something more than survival. Around that time, Emma reached out. Just a single text. Emma, you got what you wanted. You happy now? I stared at the screen for a long time, not angry, not shaken, just tired. Me, no, I didn't want this. I wanted a family that treated me like I mattered. You made sure I never had that. I never heard back. I don't think I will. Sometimes I drive past my parents' neighborhood, not intentionally, but when I do, I don't flinch anymore. I don't crane my neck or feel that pull in my chest. I just see it for what it is, a place where someone else's version of me lived, a version I outgrew. The final thing I did was change my emergency contact. It used to be my father. Now it's Jamie. That small act felt bigger than anything, like saying, I choose who shows up for me now. A few weeks ago, Sarah threw a small birthday dinner, just a handful of friends, laughter, and homemade cupcakes. No speeches, no side eyes, no garage seats, just love. At one point, I stepped outside with my plate, looking up at the night sky. Jamie joined me. Still haunted, they asked gently. I thought about it. No, I said, just remembering how far I've come. Because healing isn't forgetting. It's choosing to move forward even when the echoes remain. And with each new day, those echoes fade a little more. This isn't a dramatic ending. There were no tearful apologies or final showdowns, just a quiet revolution inside me that said, no more. And now I wake up in a home I chose, with people who choose me back. I laugh louder, I speak up sooner, I rest without guilt, I give without fear. And when someone asks me where I'm from, I don't say that house. I say I'm from rebuilding, because that's what I did. And I'm just getting started. Story 2. Hello friends, thank you for being here. I hope wherever you're watching from, your day is calm, kind, and full of moments that remind you that you're not alone. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Now, let's begin a story I never thought I'd have to tell. My name is Nathan, I'm 33, and 3 months ago, my parents didn't come to my wedding. Not because they were sick, not because they were traveling, but because my younger sister had a birthday brunch one town over. I grew up in Illinois, in a town small enough where everyone knew what kind of pie your mom brought to the church bake sale. My parents, Linda and Roger, were the kind who lived for appearances. Dad coached Little League. Mom ran the community newsletter and had a framed photo of her organizing canned goods at the local shelter. To neighbors, we were the picture of wholesome. But inside our home, something felt off. Not loud or dramatic, just a quiet, persistent imbalance. From the age of 15, I worked part-time jobs, mowing lawns, bagging groceries, running spreadsheets for local shops. My parents were proud not of my ambition, but of what it saved them. When my sister Leah, 4 years younger, needed a new laptop for school, I was asked to help out. When our water heater went, I was asked to chip in. Even in college, they leaned on me just until Dad's bonus hits or were tight with Leah's tuition. And I helped, because I thought that's what family did. I became the dependable one, the fixer, the quiet problem solver, and in return, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud. I waited for it, craved it. It never came. Meanwhile, Leah was a walking celebration. Every minor milestone got balloons and cake. When she opened a home decor Instagram account, my mom threw her a launch party. When she landed a part-time job at a boutique, they bought her a new outfit to mark the occasion. When I bought my first home at 29, Mom said, "Isn't it a bit small?" Still, I hung on. I told myself they just didn't know how to show pride, that my role, the reliable one, didn't lend itself to cheering sections. Then I met Harper. She wasn't flashy or loud, just real. She didn't flinch when I told her about my strange family dynamics. She gently pointed out how often I gave and how rarely I received. And when I proposed, she cried. Not just because she was happy, but because she said I finally deserved someone who chose me. We set a wedding date, simple, elegant, meaningful. Well, when I called my mom to share it, her reaction was lukewarm. Oh, Leah's birthday weekend. She said it flat, like the two events held equal weight. I mean, she added, you know how she gets if we skip out? I brushed it off. They'd come, they had to come. It was my wedding, after all, the one moment I needed them in the front row. The day came. It was warm, with a breeze that made the trees whisper above the garden venue. Harper looked radiant. My friends were there, my coworkers, even a couple of distant cousins. But not my parents. Not my sister. No text, no call. I held it together until right before I walked down the aisle, my phone buzzed. One message. Can't make it. Hun, Leah's brunch ran long. You know how traffic gets. Hope it goes well. Send photos. I stared at the screen, the words blurring. Not even sorry. Just an afterthought, tossed out like a casual errand reminder. In that moment, something inside me finally cracked. The decades of swallowing disappointment, of wiring money and brushing off hurt, all rose to the surface. It wasn't just about the wedding, it was about never being enough. They didn't miss my wedding because of logistics. They missed it because they never saw me as a priority. I married Harper with a smile that barely held. I danced, I toasted, I celebrated, but inside, I was burning not with sadness, but with a cold clarity I'd never known before. The next day, I opened my laptop and I started writing an email, short, clear. Your absence at my wedding was the final confirmation of something I've been too afraid to accept. I've been the dependable one, the ATM, the background support in your lives, but I won't do it anymore. Don't contact me unless it's to apologize sincerely. I need peace. I'm choosing myself now. I hit send, and then I turned off my phone. 3 days after the wedding, Harper and I were still in that post-ceremony glow. We were on a mini honeymoon, just a rented cabin near Lake Geneva. No reception, no distractions. I was finally breathing. I hadn't checked my phone since I turned it off that night. But the moment we got back into signal range, it lit up like a Christmas tree. 42 missed calls, 17 voicemails, over 60 texts. The first thing I noticed, not one was congratulatory. There was no "you looked happy" or "wish we could have been there." Instead, the first message was from my dad. "What was that email dramatic much?" Then my mom. "Nathan, your message was incredibly hurtful. We've done everything for you. You don't get to cut us off because of one misunderstanding." And Leah, of course. "I'm sorry you feel that way, but my birthday's once a year. Your wedding isn't even technically a big deal." That one made Harper laugh out loud. I didn't. Because what they didn't realize, or maybe refused to realize, was that it wasn't one incident. It was the final straw in a mountain of ignored calls, dismissed accomplishments, and emotional IOUs that were never repaid. I didn't respond, not yet. Over the next week, their tactics escalated. First came the guilt. "We're your parents. We raised you. You're punishing us for something that wasn't even intentional." Then the gaslighting. "You never said the date was set in stone. We assumed there'd be another celebration." And finally, the panic. "We're behind on our car payment. If you're really cutting us off, at least send one more wire to cover July." I read those messages on a loop, feeling every old instinct claw its way back, the need to smooth things over, to be the reliable one, the good son. But Harper was my anchor. "You're not cruel for protecting your peace," she reminded me. "You're not responsible for their poor planning." She was right. So I held the line. No more money. No more explanations. No more letting guilt override my needs. It didn't take long for the backlash to go public. My parents started calling extended family members aunts, uncles, even my godfather painting a picture of an ungrateful son who had changed after marriage. They said I'd been brainwashed by Harper. And they said I'd abandoned my sick mother and struggling father. I found out when my cousin Derek texted, "Hey man, I heard some things. Just want to check in. You okay?" That stung. Not Derek reaching out, but realizing how quickly my parents were willing to torch my reputation to regain control. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't engage. I didn't send out my own PR statement. I just let the truth sit where it needed to sit. Because I knew the people who really knew me wouldn't believe it. And those who did believe it, they were never truly in my corner to begin with. Meanwhile, Leah wasn't done. About 2 weeks after the wedding, she messaged Harper. Not me, Harper. It started with faux concern. "I hope you're treating Nathan well. He's always been a little sensitive. Please don't isolate him from the family." Then came the attack. "I don't know what you said to make him turn on us, but it's toxic. You're ruining everything." Harper didn't respond. She simply showed me the message, shrugged, and said, "She's projecting." But inside, I was furious. Because it showed just how deep the entitlement ran. Leah truly believed that I was the one being manipulated, not that I was finally standing up for myself. To them, asserting boundaries wasn't strength, it was betrayal. It wasn't all bad, though. In the silence that followed, something beautiful began to grow peace. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't juggling bills that weren't mine. I wasn't bracing for a just one more thing text. I wasn't sacrificing my future to keep someone else comfortable. Instead, Harper and I planned our real honeymoon something modest, but fully ours. We took long walks, cooked meals together, talked about the life we wanted, not the life we'd inherited. I started therapy. At first, I felt guilty about it. I thought maybe I was overreacting, but my therapist, a calm woman named Dr. Patel, looked at me after I explained everything and simply said, "You've been parenting your parents since you were a teenager. That's not love, that's control." She helped me name things I'd never had the words for: emotional manipulation, financial codependency, parentification. Suddenly, the past made more sense, not easier but clearer. And clarity is a powerful thing. By month 3, the calls had slowed. But one day, a thick manila envelope showed up at our door. No return address. Inside was a letter, handwritten, from my dad. "You've always been difficult, always thought you were better than us, but what you did at that wedding, unforgivable. You humiliated us." Leah cried for days. Your mother had to increase her medication, all because you couldn't let one birthday brunch slide. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and filed it under unopened chapters. Harper asked if I wanted to respond. "No," I said, "I already did. By living, hi again, and welcome back." Last time, I shared how standing my ground led to a wave of guilt, gaslighting, and silence. But what happened next, I found something. Or rather, someone helped me find something. And that changed everything. It began with a box. Harper and I had finally decided to clean out the last of the moving containers, the ones we'd stashed in the garage since the wedding. Among them was a faded banker's box labeled Nathan College. It was full of the usual stuff: old textbooks, dusty cords from long-lost gadgets, some worn-out notebooks. And then I found a folder. Inside, bank statements from my late teens, emails I'd printed out for reference, and a few notes written by my mom. That's when I noticed something strange. One note, written in her careful handwriting, was titled "Leah's College Fund, Plan B." It wasn't just notes about her expenses. It was a detailed outline, calculations, and forecasts about how I could cover Leah's tuition if their Plan A didn't work out. She had listed my part-time income during college, my expected bonuses, even anticipated tax refunds. If we phrase it right, she'd written in the margins, "He won't say no, just make it about family." I felt the wind leave my lungs. I read the whole page again. They didn't just ask me for help over the years, they planned to use me, strategically, like a backup credit card. The realization stung, and what hurt more, this note was dated years before I'd even gotten my first job offer out of school. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overreacting. This had been premeditated. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept wondering how much of my life had been shaped by their expectations, not spoken aloud, but written behind closed doors. What other decisions had been made for me without me? Harper sat beside me, quietly holding my hand. "You know," she said, "this isn't just about betrayal. This is about reclaiming your narrative." And she was right. Because something inside me shifted. The heartbreak gave way to something else. Resolve. A week later, I got a message from my cousin Aaron. We weren't close, but we'd always gotten along at family barbecues. She texted, "Hey, I've heard what's going on. I think you should know. Your parents sent an email around about you. I didn't reply, but I saved it." I asked if she could forward it. She did. It was from my dad, CC'd to half the family. "Nathan's cut us off financially. It's been devastating. We raised him, and now he's acting like we're strangers. Harper's influence is toxic. She's isolating him." It ended with, "If you talk to him, maybe you can convince him to come to his senses. Family isn't supposed to turn their back." There it was again, the same narrative, that I was the one breaking apart the family. But this time, I had receipts. Between the folder and Aaron's email, I finally had more than just pain. I had evidence. And that's when I decided to call someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my Uncle Ray. Ray was my dad's younger brother, the black sheep. He'd moved out of state when I was a kid after a massive falling out no one talked about, but I remembered how he'd always been kind to me, always a little more real than the rest of the family. When I called him, he picked up on the first ring. "Nathan," he asked, "is everything all right?" I told him everything from the wedding no-show to the note I found to the email circulating. He was silent for a long beat. Then he sighed. "I've been waiting for this day," he said. "Ray invited me and Harper to visit the next weekend. He lived in a modest house outside Minneapolis with a quiet yard and too many wind chimes. When we arrived, he hugged me like a father should." "I left," he said over coffee, "because of how your parents treated me when I stopped supporting their financial decisions. You were too young to remember, but they leaned on me heavily after Leah was born." He paused. "I tried to say no once, just once, and they cut me out, said I wasn't family anymore." He showed me letters, old ones from my mom, full of the same passive-aggressive guilt I now knew by heart. "I've watched from afar," he said. "Watched them shift their attention to you when you started working. And I hoped maybe you were different, maybe they'd changed." He looked down. "I'm sorry they didn't." Ray offered to help me with something I hadn't even thought about, protecting myself legally. He'd gone through it. He knew the tactics. With his guidance, I contacted a legal advisor, someone who specialized in financial abuse and informal family obligations. They confirmed what Ray already knew. "Unless there are signed agreements," the advisor said, "you don't owe them anything, not 1 cent. She even offered to help me send a cease and desist letter, should the harassment continue. Just having that assurance, that permission to stop being a lifeline, felt like shedding a 100-pound weight. Back home, I wrote one last message, not to send, just to write. "I forgive you, not because you asked, but because I need to move on. You made your choice when you chose a birthday brunch over your own son's wedding, when you planned how to spend my money before I'd even earned it, when you told people I'd abandoned you when all I did was say no for the first time. I forgive you, but I'm done." 2 months after we visited Uncle Ray, things got quiet. No more calls from unlisted numbers. No more messages from cousins repeating my parents' talking points. Even Leah went silent, or maybe she'd just run out of people to message on my behalf. But silence, I learned, doesn't always mean peace. It can also mean planning. It came in the form of a letter, certified, sealed, and reeking of legal jargon. They were threatening legal action. The basis, reimbursement for past family investments. Specifically, childhood housing, college tuition, food, emotional labor. Yes, they listed emotional labor. It would have been hilarious if it weren't so pathetically real. Harper read it aloud, then set it down carefully. "This is desperation," she said. She wasn't wrong, but it still hit hard. To see your parents reduce your existence to an invoice, that stings. I called our lawyer, the one Ray had introduced us to. She barely blinked. "There's no precedent," she said. "Parents cannot bill their children for raising them. This is a scare tactic. We'll respond, and then we'll shut it down." That night, I sat in the backyard with a beer and my thoughts. All I'd ever wanted was a family that showed up. One that didn't need receipts to love me. Instead, I got lawyers, invoices, and silence. Then came the message from Aaron, the cousin who had sent me the original email chain. "Nathan, there's something you should know. Your dad's trying to start a GoFundMe." I blinked at the screen. A GoFundMe. He'd titled it "Struggling Parents Abandoned by Only Son." The story was predictably warped claims that they'd spent their retirement supporting me, that I'd ghosted them with no warning, that they were being punished for loving too much. They even used a photo from my high school graduation, me in a cap and gown, standing between them. It felt like a slap. The comments were brutal. Strangers calling me ungrateful, selfish, spoiled. Some of them donated. The account raised over $3,000 in 2 days. I was furious not because of the money, but because of the narrative. They were rewriting history in real time, and people believed them. That's when Harper said something that changed my approach. "They're loud because they think you'll stay quiet." So I spoke. Not with anger, not with a thread. Just a single, carefully written post. I kept it short. "There's a fundraiser being circulated by my parents. I won't argue with their story. I'll just say this. I invited them to my wedding. They skipped it. They've asked me for money every month since I was 22. When I stopped, they called me ungrateful. I won't be contributing to the fundraiser, but I will be protecting my peace." I posted it on my private page. No tagging, no direct references. But it got shared a lot. More than I expected. Comments rolled in from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old college friends, former coworkers, even people I didn't know. And the message was the same: "Thank you." Apparently, I wasn't alone. People told me their own stories of parents who treated them like banks, siblings who demanded unearned loyalty, and how saying no turned them into villains in their own family's stories. And in that flood of voices, I felt something I hadn't in months. Relief. Not everyone thought I was cruel. Not everyone believed the story my parents were selling. And for the first time, I realized I didn't need everyone to understand. Just the people who mattered. The legal threat eventually dissolved. Our lawyer sent a firm response, highlighting the absurdity of their claims and referencing our evidence. There was no reply. The GoFundMe quietly disappeared 2 weeks later. Whether it was removed by the platform or taken down by them, I'll never know. And honestly, I didn't care anymore. Around that time, something else shifted. Harper and I started talking seriously about our future. Kids, a new house, maybe even moving out of state. I was scared. Not because I didn't want those things, but because I didn't know how to have them without repeating the past. What if I became like them? What if all I'd learned from my parents was how to expect too much from the people I loved? Harper held my hand gently and said, "You broke the cycle the day you said no. That's where our story starts, not theirs." A year passed. I still don't hear from them. Every now and then, someone mentions Leah, how she's working a new job, living in a smaller apartment. I wish her no harm. But I no longer carry her comfort on my shoulders. Same with my parents. I don't know where they live now. I don't know what story they're telling next. But I know my story. And it's this: that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. That silence doesn't mean peace. That love without respect is just manipulation in disguise. Harper and I eventually did move to a small town upstate. The house isn't big, but it's ours. We painted the front door yellow. We started a garden. We adopted a scruffy dog named Jasper who refuses to listen but always knows when I need comfort. And slowly, steadily, the weight I carried for so long began to lift. I used to think healing would feel like a finish line, a banner, an applause, and a medal around my neck. But really, healing feels like a quiet Tuesday morning. A warm mug. A clean inbox. A missed call you don't return and don't feel guilty about. So here's what I want to say to you. If you've made it this far, if you're carrying a weight that was handed to you by the people who were supposed to lift you up, you're not alone. If you're afraid that saying no will make you a bad son, a bad daughter, a bad sibling, you're not. If you've lost your family by choosing yourself, maybe they weren't your family to begin with. The ones who love you don't ask you to break yourself in half just to keep them whole. Story 3. Hey there. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope wherever you're watching from, you're having a peaceful and grounded day. If you feel like sharing, I'd love to know which city or country you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Now, let's begin. They say family is everything, but what happens when your family sees you only as a credit card with a heartbeat? My name is Ethan. I'm 35. I live just outside Denver, Colorado. I've built a life that feels steady, not flashy, but strong. I've worked in finance since I was 23. Long hours, tight deadlines, but it paid off. I bought my first home at 30, paid off my student loans by 33. Everything I have. I built myself. But my family didn't see me as Ethan the person. To them, I was Ethan the solution. Growing up, my dad drilled into me the idea of family responsibility. And my mom, she specialized in quiet guilt, the kind of sigh that could fill a room. My younger sister Lily was the favorite, no debate. She was always fragile. According to mom, sensitive, needed extra. So I gave. It started small, $50 for gas here, a new laptop for school there. Then, suddenly, I was covering mom and dad's overdue property taxes, paying for Lily's therapy, then her car, then her rent when she moved out and immediately couldn't afford it. They'd always say the same thing, "You're doing well. It's not a big deal for you." But it was a big deal. Every check I sent felt like trading a piece of myself, my time, my freedom. Still, I kept hoping maybe if I helped enough, they'd see me, not just use me. Then came Harper. We met in a coffee shop, the cliché kind of meeting that somehow sticks. She asked to borrow my charger. I offered my seat. 4 years later, we were planning a wedding. She was the first person who looked at me and saw more than what I could provide. She saw the stress behind my eyes, the exhaustion in my bones. She didn't try to fix me. She just held space for me. So when we decided to get married, I felt hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, this event, our wedding, would be the moment my family showed up for me. We sent invitations 6 months in advance, gave them options, offered to pay for the flight if money was tight. Dad said, "We'll see." Mom said, "It's just Lily's birthday is that weekend." I remember blinking at the phone. Lily's birthday. Yeah, it's her 30th. We were planning a brunch. You knew about our wedding date for months. She'll be upset if we miss it. Ethan, you know how she gets. I held the phone in silence. They hadn't even told her yet. They'd just assumed. The day of the wedding arrived. Clear skies, gentle breeze. Harper looked radiant in a dress that flowed like water. I stood there, suit pressed, heart pounding not from nerves, but from a low, gnawing dread. They hadn't called, not even a text. At 1:55 p.m., 5 minutes before the ceremony, I got a message. It was from Mom. Brunch ran long. Sorry we couldn't make it. Lily needed us today. Congrats. Send pics. That was it. No apology, no explanation. They chose brunch. Over their son's wedding. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. I read the text twice. Then again, I showed it to Harper. Her eyes filled with tears, not for her, but for me. My best man nudged me forward. The music started. I walked. I smiled. I said my vows. But something inside me broke. In the days that followed, I waited. For a call, for an explanation, anything. Instead, Mom texted, "The car payment is due. Can you take care of it?" That was the moment I knew. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't a mistake. This was who they were. That night, after the reception, Harper and I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, still in half-formal wear, makeup fading, emotions raw. She didn't say much, just held my hand. I kept rereading the text. They chose a $20 brunch over a once-in-a-lifetime event. That choice told me everything I'd been too afraid to admit. They never saw me as a person, only a provider. The next morning, I sent one message. "You've made your priorities clear. Don't contact me unless it's an apology." I silenced my phone and spent our honeymoon trying to feel free. But anger clung to me like humidity. Not loud rage, just that slow, boiling kind. The kind that simmers behind your smile, staining everything sweet. Back home, the messages resumed. Not apologies, just requests. Power bills due. You forgot again? Lily's car is acting up. She needs a little help. As if nothing had changed. That's when I knew they weren't in denial. They just didn't care. They'd always assumed I'd keep giving because I always had. I blocked their numbers, deleted their emails, started therapy. Because the truth is, even when you know they don't love you the right way, it still hurts. It's grief not of death, but of hope. Grieving the family you thought you had. Grieving the child inside you that kept trying to earn love that should have been free. But cutting them off didn't stop them. But when I didn't answer, they sent relatives. First, Aunt Deborah, sweet on the outside, passive-aggressive in every sentence. "Ethan, you've really upset your mother. She's not sleeping." Then Uncle Rob, a man I hadn't spoken to in a decade. "Your dad says you're punishing them. That's not like you." I knew where this was going. They were rallying the troops. And sure enough, next came the guilt parade on social media. Lily posted a birthday photo with the caption, "Even when others don't show up, we have each other." Subtle, not even close. Comments poured in, friends asking, "Where was Ethan?" Relatives chiming in, "He used to be so dependable." I stayed quiet. Because part of healing is refusing to defend yourself in a rigged trial. 3 weeks after the wedding, Harper and I had dinner with my friend, Marcus, someone who'd known my family back in the day. He said something I'll never forget. "They're not mad you changed. They're mad you stopped playing your role." That hit me like a truck. I had changed. For the first time in 15 years, I said no. No to bailing them out. No to being their emotional trash can. No to sacrificing my own peace so they could have brunch. And they couldn't handle it. Because I wasn't supposed to be free. I was supposed to be dependable, quiet, obedient. The family wallet with a pulse. A month later, I got a letter. Yes, a real handwritten letter. It was from my dad. Short, formal, cold. He asked for money to cover delayed taxes, claiming it was my responsibility as the stable one. No mention of the wedding. No mention of Harper. Just we expect your help. I read it 3 times, then lit it on fire. I realized something important that day. They didn't miss the wedding because of timing or distance. They missed it because they didn't see me and never had. I was a resource, not a son. The turning point came when Lily's boyfriend, someone I barely knew, messaged me privately. "Hey man, this is probably none of my business, but your parents are saying you abandoned them, that you blocked them out of the blue. Is that true?" I could have ignored it, but I didn't. I wrote back. They skipped my wedding to attend Lily's brunch. They never called, never apologized, and they've asked for money every week since. That's the whole story. He replied within minutes. "Jesus, I had no idea. I'm sorry." Later, he told Lily he knew the truth. She exploded. Told him I was manipulating him, that I was just bitter. He dumped her 2 weeks later. Harper and I started building our real life. We changed phone numbers. We left no forwarding address. I started journaling every night, not just about the past, but about the future, who I wanted to be now that I was finally free. I dreamed of a quiet home, of a family that lifted me up instead of weighing me down, of kids, maybe, a yellow front door, a life where my worth wasn't calculated by a bank statement. The texts and calls finally stopped. Not because they gave up, but because they moved on to their next source. Lily. She started working more hours, complained online about selfish siblings, posted screenshots of Venmo requests like trophies. And for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. No guilt. No anger. Just peace. Weeks after cutting ties, as Harper and I started our fresh life, I began receiving strange emails. At first, I ignored them. Spam, I thought. But one night, curiosity won. I opened an attachment. It was a folder named Family Secrets. Inside were scanned letters, emails, and financial documents, things my parents never wanted me to see. The truth stared back at me. The documents revealed years of manipulation. My parents had kept detailed records of every dollar I sent. They had spreadsheets tracking not just the money, but the timing of payments and how to maximize their benefits. But what shocked me most was a series of emails between them and Sarah. Sarah, the golden child, was complicit in the scheme. She had written messages like, "He's going to keep paying, let's make sure he doesn't realize we're juggling debts. Mom and Dad want me to push for another car repair this month." It wasn't just about money, it was about control. I sat back, stunned. The emails painted a picture of a family not struggling but calculating, using me as a cash flow to fund their lifestyle while pretending to be needy. And all the while, they were undermining me behind the scenes. There were also personal attacks disguised as casual comments, a deliberate effort to keep me off balance. I felt sick, betrayed anew. But alongside the pain came clarity. This was not my fault. I was not the problem. I needed help. That's when Harper reminded me of someone. Her cousin, Lauren. Lauren was a social worker with a background in family dynamics and legal advocacy. I was hesitant to involve anyone else. The whole thing felt too personal, too raw. But I swallowed my pride and sent Lauren a message. Lauren responded immediately. She listened to everything without judgment. Then she said something that hit home. "Ethan, you've been holding all this alone for so long. You don't have to fight it by yourself." Lauren offered to help me document everything, organize the evidence, and connect me with a family lawyer she trusted. With Lauren's support, I found a lawyer, Clara Mitchell. Clara was sharp, compassionate, and no nonsense. She reviewed the documents and immediately saw the gravity of the situation. This goes beyond emotional neglect. There's clear financial exploitation. We can take action. For the first time, I felt like I had an ally who believed me and could fight for me. We started gathering everything: bank statements, emails, text messages. I was nervous about what would happen if I confronted my parents legally, but Clara assured me, this isn't about revenge. It's about setting boundaries and reclaiming your life. We filed formal notices demanding repayment for the funds taken under false pretenses. Predictably, my parents denied everything. They called me ungrateful, a liar, and a troublemaker. Sarah even posted a public statement on social media accusing me of fabricating stories to ruin the family's reputation. It was ugly, but I refused to respond. The legal process was slow and frustrating. But with Lauren and Clara by my side, I stayed grounded. They reminded me that this was bigger than money. It was about my dignity, my peace, and finally breaking free of toxic cycles. One day, Clara arranged a mediation session. It was the moment I'd been dreading and anticipating. My parents and Sarah showed up, looking composed but tense. Across the table, I sat calm but determined. During the session, Clara laid out the evidence. The spreadsheets, emails, and financial records all painted a damning picture. I shared my story: the wedding, the years of sacrifice, the pain of being unseen. My parents sputtered excuses and gaslighting tactics, but the facts were undeniable. Sarah, caught in the crossfire, crumbled under the weight of her own words. The mediator was clear: this family dynamic was broken and needed professional intervention. An agreement was reached requiring my parents to reimburse a portion of the funds and cease all financial demands. More importantly, it mandated family therapy sessions, something my parents reluctantly agreed to, but probably never intended to fully commit to. The mediation didn't magically fix everything, but it was a huge step toward justice. More importantly, it gave me something I hadn't felt in years: power. Power to protect myself. Power to build a life on my own terms. After the session, Lauren and I met for coffee. She told me, "You've already won, Ethan, not because of money or legal victories, but because you chose yourself." Her words echoed in me. I realized healing wasn't about fixing the past. It was about embracing my worth and refusing to let others define me. Harper and I have since moved into a new place. A home filled with laughter, love, and respect. We host dinners where the only expectations are kindness and presence. I'm rebuilding my finances slowly but surely. To those of you listening, sometimes the hardest battles are with the people who should love you most. But the truth is, family is what you choose. It's the people who lift you up, who respect your boundaries, who celebrate your worth. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If you've been following along, you know I faced betrayal, heartbreak, and manipulation by the people I once called family. But I'm here today to tell you it doesn't have to be the end. After the mediation, the dust settled in a way I never expected. The legal battle gave me clarity but not peace. True healing was something I had to find inside. Therapy was the first step. I'd always been reluctant, thinking I should be strong enough to handle this myself. But sitting with a counselor named Grace, I began unraveling the layers of pain, guilt, and misplaced responsibility I'd carried for years. Grace helped me see the truth I'd buried. I wasn't responsible for their choices. I deserved love without conditions. I started journaling again, a practice I'd abandoned in my teenage years. Putting words to feelings helped me process the grief of losing the family I imagined. It hurt like nothing else, but each entry was a small step toward freedom. Harper was my anchor through it all. Her quiet strength, empathy, and unwavering support gave me hope on the darkest days. She didn't try to fix me, she just showed up. That made all the difference. Rebuilding my finances was slow but empowering. Instead of sending money out, I set up a savings account earmarked for dreams: a future home, travel, a fund for emergencies. Every dollar saved was a reclaiming of my worth. I reconnected with old friends I'd drifted away from during the years of family strain. People who knew me before the family ATM label. Their encouragement reminded me who I was beneath the wounds. Interestingly, some family members who had distanced themselves started reaching out. Not to defend my parents, but to offer genuine apologies and check in. It was awkward but healing in its own way. Not everyone's path is the same. One day, while walking in a local park, I saw a father playing with his kids. Their laughter was pure and free. It struck me, family could be simple. Not perfect, but chosen. All built on respect and kindness, and not expectations or transactions. Gil. I took that thought and let it guide me. My family now is small but real. Harper, our close friends, even Lauren and Grace. They're the people who see me, who respect my boundaries, who love me without conditions. Forgiveness came slowly. Not for my parents, not yet. But for myself? For holding on too long to a fantasy. For thinking love meant sacrifice without return. I forgive myself for not walking away sooner. I'm still healing. Some scars run deep. But the pain no longer controls me. It fuels my strength. This journey taught me valuable lessons. Boundaries aren't betrayal, they're self-respect. True family supports you, not drains you. Sometimes love means walking away to save yourself. If you're in a similar place, know this. You're not alone. It's okay to choose peace over obligation. It's okay to redefine family on your terms. Before I go, I want to thank you again for listening to my story. It's been raw, painful, but ultimately empowering. Please share your thoughts, your own stories, or just drop a hello. I read every comment. Remember, the hardest roads often lead to the brightest destinations. Here's to healing, reclaiming, and new beginnings. Months had passed since the mediation, the confrontation, and the cold, hard truths laid bare in that sterile room. I'd thought the worst was over when the formalities ended. But healing doesn't arrive on schedule. It doesn't come with a neat little bow or a celebratory toast. It comes slowly in the quiet moments when the past tries to sneak back in, and you have to choose again and again what your future looks like. Emily and I had settled into married life, a life I'd fought hard to protect. The house we moved into was modest, but it was ours. No strings attached, no lurking shadows of old family expectations or financial leashes. It was a sanctuary. Some days I caught myself just staring out the window, grateful for the peace I never thought I deserved. That peace was hard-earned. My parents' absence left a gaping hole, one filled with memories I had to reframe. The rituals they skipped, the holidays, the birthdays, the celebrations they now felt like relics of a story I no longer belonged to. I grieved not just the family I lost, but the family I wished I had. There was anger. Yes, deep and fiery, but beneath it was a raw ache for something better, something genuine. Surprisingly, over time, some family members started reaching out, not the ones who had blindly sided with my parents, but those who'd quietly watched, who'd suspected but never spoke. Linda, my cousin, became an unexpected ally and friend. Her calls were a balm, reminding me that family could be chosen as much as born into. Therapy became a cornerstone of my recovery, talking about years of neglect disguised as love, of feeling invisible beneath the weight of expectations, helped untangle the knots in my chest. It was liberating to admit the truth that I deserved respect and love for who I was, not just what I could provide. Social media quieted down, and the rumors faded. I stopped checking the occasional bitter comments Sarah left online. They felt like echoes from a past life, and I was no longer that person. I was someone who had reclaimed their voice. Financially, the setback stung, but it taught me resilience. I started rebuilding my savings slowly, with Emily's encouragement and a newfound sense of purpose. We dreamed of someday owning a home big enough to host dinners filled with laughter, not resentment. One evening, Emily asked me what I'd tell my younger self if I could go back. I thought about it for a long time. I'd tell him, I said, that it's okay to say no, that you don't have to carry everyone else's burdens to prove you're worthy, that sometimes the hardest love is the one you give yourself. That moment crystallized everything I'd learned. Boundaries weren't walls, they were bridges to healthier relationships. Self-respect wasn't selfish, it was survival. And true family wasn't about blood or history, it was about who stood by you when the world turned its back. I won't pretend the scars have faded completely. Some days the memories sting sharper than others, but I face those days with a strength I never thought I had, because I chose to walk away, and in doing so, I walked toward myself. So, to anyone out there feeling trapped by toxic ties, remember this: you deserve to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved for all that you are. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose your own peace over someone else's expectations.